I was working as a barista in Vienna, Austria, and American tourist came in and ordered a coffee, then looked around confused. He asked me, "So, where are all the kangaroos?" I politely informed him that he was in Austria, not Australia. He continued, "Why would they build it with all these holes and broken parts? It looks like they just gave up. Was it a budget issue? In America, we finish our stadiums before we open them." I spent 5 minutes explaining earthquakes and to millennia of history, but he just kept muttering about shoddy Roman contractors. He argued with me for a solid 2 minutes, insisting his travel agent booked him a flight to see the kangaroos and that I, a local, must be the one who was mistaken about the name of my own country. He left in a huff, complaining that Austria was falsely advertising itself. My tour group in Rome was standing before the Colosseum and I was giving my speech about its history and eventual fall into disrepair. A man in a bright red USA had interrupted me. "Hold on, I'm a construction guy and this doesn't make sense." I paused. "Are you going to tell me how to drink my drink?" I brought her a glass of ice and she plopped the cubes into her €50 rose with a loud clink. I was waiting tables at a bistro in a small village in Provence. An American couple ordered a bottle of our finest local rose. I presented it and poured a taste. The wife then flagged me down. "Excuse me, we need some ice for this. It's not cold enough." I tried to explain very politely that in France, we don't put ice in wine as it dilutes the flavor. She looked at me with utter disdain and sighed. "Honey, I'm from Texas. It's hot. I want ice in my wine." In a crowded market in Marrakesh, I watched an American woman try to buy a lantern. The vendor told her the price in Moroccan dirham. She pulled out her phone's calculator, did a conversion, and then announced loudly, "I'll give you $10 for it." The vendor politely refused, asking for the local currency. While working at the front desk of a hotel in Iceland, a guest called down in the middle of the night, furious. "Your advertisement promised the northern lights. I've been looking out my window for an hour, and I don't see anything. You know, with the crunchy shells, ground beef, and yellow cheese." The waiter explained that they were in Andalusia and that was more of a Tex-Mex dish. The wife chimed in, "But you're in Spain and Mexicans speak Spanish, so you should have tacos. It's the same thing, right?" I was guiding a tour at the Tower of London. We were discussing the crown jewels. A woman from California raised her hand and asked, "So, does the Queen have to, check these out from the library when she wants to wear them? Or does she just come here with a key? It seems really inconvenient to keep your jewelry so far from the palace." She envisioned the Queen of England needing to make a special trip across town to get a necklace. "I want to see where Mel Gibson fought." The Scottish driver took a deep breath and explained that the movie was largely fictional and it filmed mostly in Ireland. The woman sounded betrayed, saying, "Well, what's the point of coming to Scotland then?" A friend of mine is a flight attendant. On a flight to New Zealand, an American passenger asked her if the pilot could try to avoid flying over the ocean because he had a fear of water. On a bus tour through the Scottish Highlands, the driver was pointing out ancient clan lands and historic castles. A woman from the back of the bus shouted, "This is all very nice, but where are the battlefields where they filmed Braveheart? Don't you have a special sound you make?" At the San Diego Zoo, the animals are always out. The guide had to patiently explain that we were in the wild and the animals were not on a schedule for our entertainment. "Are you going to turn them on or do I need to ask for A refund, I had to explain that the aurora borealis is a natural phenomenon, not a light switch we control. He sounded genuinely disappointed, as if he'd been scammed by nature itself. I was on a train from Florence to Venice, and American family was sitting across from me as the train pulled into the Santa Lucia station on the water. The teenage son looked out the window with a horrified expression. She replied, "But the dollar is stronger. You're making a profit. Don't you people understand basic economics?" She seemed to think the US dollar was a universally accepted currency that vendors should be grateful to receive. He turned to his dad and yelled, "Oh my God, Dad, look, the whole city is flooded. Is this because of that global warming thing?" The father patted his shoulder and said, "Don't worry, son, I'm sure they have a plan to pump it all out for the tourists tomorrow." At a restaurant in southern Spain, an American couple was struggling with the menu. The waiter, who spoke excellent English, came to help. The husband said, "We just want some tacos." She had to pull out a map and show him that New Zealand is, in fact, an island nation in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and that avoiding the ocean was geographically impossible. He asked if they could at least fly over the shallow parts. Overheard in a German bakery in Berlin, an American tourist points at a pretzel. "What's that squiggly bread?" Baker, "Das ist ein Brezel." Tourist, "Okay, cool. Can I get one of those, but without all the salt? I'm on a low-sodium diet." The baker just stared at him, holding the salt-covered pretzel completely speechless. The man's wife then added, "And do you have any ranch dressing for dipping?" I was working at a hotel in the historic center of Amsterdam. An American guest complained that his room was too small and the stairs were too steep. This building is a clear fire hazard. In the US, this would be illegal. The old bartender leaned over and said, "Son, we'll pour you a Guinness and we'll pour you a base, but in this pub, we pour them in separate glasses. You can do with them what you will." The historical ignorance was so thick you could cut it with a knife. You should tear it all down and build a proper hotel, like a Hilton with elevators and big rooms. I explained that the building was over 300 years old and was a protected historical monument. He replied, "Well, that's just poor planning." I was on a safari in Tanzania, and our group was an American who was very disappointed by the lack of animal sightings in the first hour. He asked the guide, "Can't you just, call them or something?" In a Tokyo subway station, I watched an American tourist get increasingly frustrated with the ticket machine. He wasn't trying to read the English instructions. At a pub in Ireland, an American loudly declared, "I'm Irish too. My great-great-grandmother's cousin was from here." He then ordered a black and tan. The pub went quiet. Instead, he was just pressing the screen harder and harder, shouting, "Work! Come on, you stupid machine!" A Japanese teenager politely came over, pressed the English button for him, and walked away. The man didn't thank him. He just said about time they got with the program. A guest at my hotel in Quebec City, Canada, asked me where he could exchange his US dollars for Canadian money. I directed him to the currency exchange. He came back later and said, "Why do they have the Queen on their money? I thought this was Canada, not England. Don't they know they're not a colony anymore?" I tried to explain the concept of the Commonwealth, but his eyes just glazed over. At the ancient city of Pompeii, a tourist was looking at the famous plaster casts of the victims of Vesuvius. He turned to his wife and said, "It's amazing how they all posed for the statues before they died. They must have known it was coming. Really, captures the emotion of the moment. He genuinely believed these were sculptures, not the final moments of actual people. I was working at a cafe in Helsinki, Finland, and American asked me if we had any regular coffee. I showed him our drip coffee. He shook his head. No. I mean, like a Starbucks Frappuccino. You guys have Starbucks here, right? It's an international brand. I told him the nearest one was a few blocks away. He sighed dramatically. Ooh, you'd think a capital city would have one on every corner. It's so inconvenient. On a boat in the Galapagos Islands, the naturalist guide was explaining Darwin's theory of evolution and how the unique wildlife inspired it. An American woman interrupted him to say, "That's just a theory. You know, we don't believe in that in my state. Can you just show us the funny looking birds and skip the liberal propaganda?" The guide, a man with a PhD in biology, was stunned into silence. An American tourist in a Parisian fromagerie cheese shop pointed at a wheel of Roquefort. "What's wrong with that cheese? It's all moldy. You shouldn't be selling that. It could make someone sick." The shopkeeper, a proud Frenchman, tried to explain that the blue veins were the entire point of the cheese. The tourist wasn't having it. In America, we throw away food that has mold on it. It's called food safety.